Everybody ready?
We're ready.
Okay. Well, I have a lot I want to try to say today, and I'm going to try to do it as quickly as possible. So we'll save some time for questions. But I did want to welcome Jeff here as the newest member of our group, and I wanted to say how much I enjoyed your story. And Vanessa, how much I enjoyed your story about David Soul's work, too. And I'll come back to that in a minute, because my 3 topics today, I usually try to just keep it to 3 topics if I can. And I really wanted to start out with the student experience today. In the student experience at the University of Iowa, I've been at a lot of research universities. I did all of my education at research universities. I've worked only at research universities. So I've had a pretty good sense of what the possibilities are at research universities, and I know that as an undergraduate, having had the opportunity to do a research project myself as a student, starting in the freshman year, that's the thing that made all the difference to me. And making those opportunities available to students are really significant and important in my mind. So I was thrilled to see that almost a third of our undergraduate student body right now are participating in some kind of what I would call either research or creative endeavor, working with faculty members. So if you're an artist, obviously you're doing a different kind of creative project than you are if you're a scientist in a research lab. But those opportunities are what really sets the research universities apart from other kinds of collegiate experiences, I would call it. We're very fortunate at Iowa to have what I call a very favorable student-to-faculty ratio. You know, the average class size at the University of Iowa, believe it or not, is 16. Sometimes hard to think about. I know my husband teaches a class that's typically over 100 students or more each semester. And when I was teaching classes that were 500 or more. But the vast majority of coursework that our students do here, and Ryan, I don't know if it was that way when you were a student here or not, but they're still relatively small classes, and they're of a size that is very typical of liberal arts colleges, of other smaller kinds of institutions that pride themselves on small class sizes. So we can give, I think, students a very special kind of experience here at the University of Iowa. Being able to work side by side with the discoverers of new knowledge, the researchers who are actually breaking ground in their research areas and creating new technologies and doing things. And I think this story that Jeff wrote is a great example of an individual over in our College of Education who is doing just that. And when you met with David Soul, I know in the biology department, I know David very well, and the antibody bank that he's created, one of the things he's very proud of is the number of undergraduates that he has working in his laboratory. Again, that opportunity is what opened the doors for me to be in my job here today, and it's exactly the kind of experience that we want our students to have. I know we've got a couple of websites out there. On the Iowa Now website, we've got the Classroom Pass. If you want to learn more about some of the faculty who are doing interesting things, I didn't realize this, that Chris Brochu, one of our paleontologists, I knew he was a fabulous paleontologist. I didn't realize he had a fossil alligator named after him. Or I guess crocodile. It would be a crocodile because it's an African species. So it's a crocodile from Kenya that is very, very old. And I knew Chris was a very well-known paleontologist, but I didn't realize that he actually had a species named after him. And we also have started doing the student experience, which is a way for you to get a look at some of our students, especially Iowa students. We're trying to focus right now on Iowa students. One of the students that was just highlighted on this site, on the student experience site, was Logan Subir. I hope I didn't mispronounce his name. He's one of our student veterans. So he's a non-traditional student, has had a very, very interesting career as a Marine. He's back in school now, is actually the president of our Iowa Student Veterans Association, is from Lehigh, yeah, Webster County, Iowa, farm boy. So interesting experiences, obviously, growing up here in Iowa. then his military service, now being back in college studying. He's actually on the criminology track in our sociology department. Not surprisingly, I think his military is going to stick with him from here on out. But what he's really doing is helping a lot of other veterans adapt to civilian life. Our veteran students, we have over 600 veteran students on campus, and about half of those actually belong to the Student Veterans Association that we have. And many of them come back from combat or come back from service to a life that's very, very different than what they were exposed to. Our veteran students need, oftentimes, need a different kind of experience here than the typical student, and having other veterans that they can talk to and having good support services that are there just for them have made a huge difference in terms of not only what they're able to accomplish here, but what they're able to accomplish later in life too, which we're very proud of. In fact, just a couple other things on our veterans, because we just celebrated Veterans Day, so it's still very fresh in my mind. I don't know if all of you had a chance to see the giant eye out on the west side of the Pentacrest that was created from American flags that our veteran students put out there. But there were over 6,000 flags on the hillside last week for celebrating Veterans Day. Every one of those flags had a name associated with it. Every name is a veteran that has some association either with the university or the community. So what a spectacular way to honor those who have served, and to continue traditions that I hope will become part of celebrations every year here on our campus, particularly because the number of veteran students continues to grow. We've been very, very fortunate to be recognized by a number of publications that the military, whether you're active military or a veteran, that they often read. We've also been recognized by U.S. News and World Report. Last year they started to list the top schools that are military-friendly, veteran-friendly, and we've made the top 10 list 2 years in a row with U.S. News and World Report, and we're very proud of that. The one last thing that I'll say on veterans that I find extraordinary here is we've managed to create a partnership with the local VA hospital, and through some federal funding that we received, an ICOVE grant. Now, what does that stand for? Well, that stands for the Iowa Consortium of Veteran Excellence. And what it is the partnership that the university and the VA has, along with the federal funding that was received to help form this partnership, that allows us to provide a variety of unique support services, mentoring, and some other things for the veteran students who are here on campus that not many, if any, other places have. It is unique right now. We're sort of the pilot for this. This is the one thing that we're doing right now that I hope will be replicated at other places around the country for veteran students. I hope that what we're doing is considered not just unique, but very, very impactful to veteran students as we go along. So I've combined two subjects there. The student experience and how important research experiences are to our undergraduates, and how important research is to this institution, as well as then our veteran students. And I want to then turn to my third topic today, which is just overall impact. And again, focusing a little bit on research. And what do we get from research? Why is research even an important thing to be doing? We know that lots of new inventions and technologies and ideas come from research, and discovery is a really important part of what we do. But the impact goes even further than that. And I want to use a couple of examples. I want to use some historical examples of impact, as well as some current examples of impact, and show how students and faculty actually can move this impact out into communities and even beyond communities, like our local community, for example. Sometimes we lose sight of the fact that probably the oldest existing startup company that came from the University of Iowa, although it's not been a startup company now for a long, long time, is ACT. That now is a global company, Not only does it have a lot of stature nationally as one of the finest testing services in the country, and the University of Iowa is continuously known for assessment and testing and the ways in which especially our education faculty, are able to understand what it means to what I do true outcomes assessments through testing. So if you truly want to try to understand what an individual knows about a certain topic, designing the right kinds of tests, the right kinds of assessments can make a huge difference. ACT is living proof of that. And ACT grew out of a desire and a need to have something other than just the SAT test that would allow colleges, universities, educational institutions to have at least some idea of how prepared a student might be when they're ready for college. Now, ACT has become a global company. It's no longer just, although we're lucky because its international headquarters remain here in Iowa City, and its roots are very deeply embedded in the College of Education at the University of Iowa. And that to me is one of the oldest examples locally of the impact that the university can have on a community and on the world. Now, if we fast forward, maybe 30, 40 years, and a faculty member in the Carver College of Medicine decides that there's a real need, because we're just really starting now into the world of molecular biology and genes and having genetic markers and having genetic testing materials. And he starts a little company called IDT, Integrated DNA Technologies, which today here in Iowa City has generated more than 600 jobs locally and is now also worldwide. They have several offices at overseas locations too. And they continue to put out a product and send it virtually everywhere, not only in this country but around the world on a daily basis. It's an amazing. If you haven't had a tour of IDT lately, let me suggest that you might want to go see what they're doing. It's really quite phenomenal in terms of what they've been able to build. It's not, today they would be probably one of the first to say it's not necessarily the sexiest science anymore, but it's utility. It's utility science, and it's absolutely critical to most of the molecular biology labs around the world today. And where do they get their DNA from? Well, they get it right here from a laboratory in Iowa City that continues to grow. They're getting a little boxed in over there by Costco. I know they've continued to expand, but I think that expansion now is more global than it is local, and that's not surprising either. And then my third and final example is a very recent one, and it's a story that I love to tell because it's one of our students. At least he was a student most recently. One of our dental students, third-year dental student, Alec Witter, was in his third year of dental school, was getting ready to take his boards, his dental boards, which you do in your third year before you finish your clinical experience in the fourth year and go out and be a real dentist. So he was studying for his dental boards and discovered that all he really had available as a tool to study were these very antiquated flashcards. I mean, you may not even be old enough to remember flashcards, I'm not sure, but they were certainly of my generation. Flashcards were often the way we studied, and if we didn't have them, we made them. So here he is in a world where he has a smartphone and he has computers and he has apps on his smartphone, and he's in the grocery line and he's thinking, why on earth don't I have an application on my phone that lets me study while I'm standing in this silly line waiting to check out? I can be better prepared for this test. So he has this grand idea. Let's develop an app that allows you to study for dental boards. He goes over to the Tippy College, and they provide him with some space and a little help on the entrepreneurship side, and pretty soon he's working with a small team. They're developing an app for the dental board. Well, Alec, if you haven't met Alec, Alec's a pretty powerful voice for what he's doing and the power of higher education generally. I mean, he really does believe that education is the key to changing the world. And as a result, his little company is now growing. and it's growing at a rather phenomenal rate that I think even surprises him. Hundreds of thousands of downloads of their initial app, and more apps in development, so that at some point when you have to study for the medical boards and when you have to study for the law boards, all of these professional disciplines that have these kinds of exams, they're now developing apps for these things. And this little company of his, in fact, I was joking with him. He was at the MBA commencement with me last spring, and afterwards I said, Alec, what are you doing at the MBA commencement? He says, I'm getting talent. He was literally picking them off the stage as they were getting their MBA degrees and hiring them for his company because he needs more talent. He's raised now, I believe, through several rounds of venture capital funding. I think he got $1 million in the first round, and I heard that it might be as much as $5 million in the second round. He's doing very well. Now, imagine the conversation that Alec had when he went home, and he told his parents, both of whom are medical professionals, I think one's a dentist and one's a doctor, that he was going to drop out of dental school because he had this great idea. Well, I asked him how that went. He said, not great initially, but clearly they saw that I was committed to this, and it's been so successful so quickly now that they don't ask me that question anymore. So, Alec is one of those, and not an uncommon success story anymore from students at the University of Iowa who have the opportunities through our Entrepreneurship Center, through the Bedell Lab, through the kinds of experiences that we're able to provide. It's not a lot of support, but it's just enough support to allow students to really let those creative juices flow and let these kinds of things happen. It wouldn't surprise me if his company is called HLT, Higher Learning Technologies, if his company doesn't become another ACT or another IDT or Civco or MetaRev or any number of companies now that we can look at and say, if not for the University of Iowa, they probably wouldn't be here today.